In terms of the allegations of the bribery, what form did the bribes take? And do you have evidence that the CIA analysts actually accepted them? Why would they accept them? And do you have some idea of the motivations of the team leader who wanted to lean towards natural origins?
As far as the monetary compensation, I've heard things like it may have been a performance bonus or something like that, something that happens routinely, but was it associated with this decision to change one's mind? So we need to look into this. Those questions you asked are very good questions, and I don't have the answers to them, but they're the ones that are on everyone's mind. And put this on top of what already has happened when it came to the Proximal Origins paper that was written. This is something that early on with COVID, when some of the scientists came to Dr. Fauci and said, this thing looks engineered, and Dr. Fauci says, well, we know they're doing this type of research on coronaviruses in Wuhan, and we know that they have the capability to create new viruses in those labs. He puts together this team of scientists that are all saying that it very much looks like the lab, and yet they write a paper that they get published. There was more of an opinion piece than actually a scientific article, but trying to definitively say this came from nature. So these are the people that we've been talking to and want to talk to more and really get to the bottom of why this would happen. And if these allegations about the CIA are true, why would somebody be motivated to even want to go one way or the other? Look, what we're trying to do for the world is try and find out what actually happened so that in the future we can try to predict the next pandemic, prepare for it, protect ourselves from it, and maybe even prevent it. But it doesn't help when we have scientists seemingly saying one thing when deep down they believe another.
I revealed in August that scientists at the Defense Intelligence Agency were censored and silenced, stopped from having input into Joe Biden's 90-day origin probe when they also formed the view that COVID was genetically engineered. I understand your select committee has started investigating these claims. Where is this up to?
Well, we are looking into that. There was a paper that was written and was actually tweeted out at one point that made some serious, observations and comments of what they felt the origins of COVID were about. And I believe what they're saying is it seemed to be ignored. So this is another thing that we want to look into, is if scientists and just yet another component are looking at something, maybe they feel they have proof of something, we want to investigate what that was, and we want to know if they were heard or if they were not heard.
Does it seem now that the scientific elements of 4 agencies, the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, the Department of Energy and the FBI, now conclude that COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 was genetically engineered?
That and came from the lab. That's the other component of it. And what I can tell you is in my research through the Intelligence Committee, I wanted to know who each of the agencies talked to, what kind of information they got and who they got it from, because that makes a difference. I mean, if you're an intelligence agency that only talked to the authors of Proximal Origins, you're only going to get one answer. What I did notice is that amongst the other agencies, FBI seemed to do the most work. And they seem to talk to the greatest experts in the field of virology compared to some of the other agencies. Department of Energy has our national labs. They have more scientists than any of the other departments. So this kind of makes sense that they would maybe be more accurate in their estimations. And now you have within the CIA hearing that 6 of the 7 felt that it came from the lab. So when you start to look at who was saying what, you have to look at why they were saying what they were saying and who they were talking to and who were the experts. And that's how deep I'm trying to dig into this, because my first question was, why did the agencies all have different information or different conclusions? Were they not all looking at the same data? Were they not all looking and talking to the same people? That's what we need to know, and I'm discovering it was very different. And so I think that within the groups that are coming forward that tend to lead towards the lab, I think they had the most expertise and put the most effort into trying to discover where this actually came from.
When you look at the censorship that seems to have taken place within the intelligence community, both in the Defense Intelligence Agency and, as you've uncovered, in the CIA, Why do you think there has been this tendency to lean towards the Chinese Communist Party's version of events and natural origin within the US intelligence community?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, I guess, if you ask that. I mean, maybe some people on one side of the aisle feel that it would be diplomatically difficult to have that conversation. I mean, just look at one of the comments that was made when we got the internal documents of those that wrote Proximal Origins. They basically said that if anyone of credibility attributes this to the lab, can you imagine what that will do to international harmony? And imagine what that might do for our scientific process? So these are their comments that they never thought we would see. So I think that tells you maybe something right there. And certainly I would think in the course of human nature, if you were funding the very types of research that could have led to the pandemic, you would probably rather say it came from nature. That just, to me, is human nature. And in 2012, Dr. Fauci was asked about this type of research in Weekend Australia, I think it was. And it was in 2012. And he said he was very much for gain-of-function research. And his premise was, well, if you can create a virus that's very deadly but also have the cure, then there's probably nothing we can't cure. And I'm paraphrasing there, but that was his thought then. And he was also asked, but aren't you concerned if this were to get out of the lab that it might create a pandemic? And his response at that time was that I think the risk of that is very low, and I think the benefits outweigh the risk. You know, at some times in our lives, and I'm a physician, sometimes you have to say, oh, I didn't have that right, or I might have been wrong. And you know what? That's the better way to go. But I'm just saying that's what he said then, and now we're in this conundrum today.